the professor of nuttiness, le professeur de fou, le professeur de noisette, je suis. Now, there's a reason why I'm using my horrible, horrible grade 9 French, and you'll see en français, you'll see in a few minutes, we'll come to that, the bilingual greeting. But I just want to say I am back. It's been a couple of months, and all is well. We had some production issues. My crew had some commitments, and I've been up and down. I may have used up another one of my 9 lives. So the cat professor is going to be a little careful here. The 9 lives are getting used up. You know? On the whole, I have been rechanneling energy. I have been reading, writing, seeing a lot of movies. So Ford versus Ferrari, a car movie. Not surprising. I saw Pain and Glory, a very good movie by Almodovar about his own addiction, partially. You know, and I saw the movie about Mr. Rogers. So I've been seeing a lot of movies. I've been reading. I've been writing. Every 4 to 6 weeks, there is a little fall or a bigger fall or whatever. Now, one other thing I should say here. Not for parents. I said it last time. Parents watched it. Now, I'm not going to provide any really explicit details here, but still, I would prefer this. Some personal issues. I would prefer my parents not to watch this. My parents, by the way, doing okay. They are still in India. I do talk to them regularly. Now, but I am still battling. And in our previous podcasts, we talked about how I don't like a lot of the 12-step terms. I don't like recovering addict. You know, I don't like relapse. I've tried to come up with my own terms. I've used struggler, but then I found struggler wasn't strong enough to depict the battle. So we talked about warrior, warrior of it. You know, id, it, warriorite. Warrior of it, you know. And in one of the podcasts, my producer had a thumbnail of me holding a sword and a shield, and there have been another one. There was a you know, from the Game of Thrones. There was a throne of swords. So the battle motif has been coming up. Now, I have decided to, for today, so we'll start with the fun part. For today, I want to take the battle, another symbol. You know how I do have in my system of Patap, I have symbols, totem symbols, etc. I don't follow the 12 steps. And the higher power, whatever. I have a Bast the cat goddess figurine. I have a laughing Buddha. I have a silver coin. Silver not good for werewolves. These are just symbols, nothing that I take literally. But I thought, in the spirit of the season and the whole Star Wars thing, the next Star Wars coming out soon, I thought I would start the podcast with, I bought myself a new toy! I had to go to a store where there were a whole bunch of human children running around, you know, and I bought myself this, you know, it's a lightsaber, you know. So this is the latest symbol for the, now, I'm having to break the thing to get it out. I should have actually done this beforehand. It's like a child opening a toy, you know. So I'm ripping the thing out of the case, you know. It's a lightsaber, okay? And it's very phallic, you know? And it's a sword, you know. So it's the Nutty Professor is ready to do battle. And this is not a regular sword. This is, and when you press this button here, it flashes, and there are phrases. Now, I ended up buying the French version, so it's going to be talking at you in French. So let's do it. Force! May the Force be with you, as far as I can tell. Like I said, my my French is from, you know, I'm not sure what that last bit means, but I caught the force, you know. So this is very symbolic, and it retracts, you know. So this is so I'm in my ego chair. So the next time I'm having very strong cravings, I take this out, and I'll have my, I don't think it matters that it's in French, because, you know, it's just a symbol, you know. So we're taking now the whole thing about the Star Wars. There's a couple of links here. One is that I have talked before about Star Wars representing, you know, the symbolic battle between good and evil. It's very Jungian. There's a lot of shadow in there. Anakin Skywalker goes to the dark side, gives into shadow. He loses his face. He becomes a mask, you know. And you've got the Jedi, the Zen stuff, all of that, you know. And I have another podcast, and I don't think we released it, so we will be probably releasing that one soon. But in that one, I specifically talk about Star Wars and a couple of other movies, and I talk about shadow, you know. So there is that link. So a symbol from that movie, I think, you know, is fitting at this time in terms of, you know, the battle. And the other link to Star Wars is Carrie Fisher, and I've mentioned her before. She was the actress. She played Princess Leia, and she battled addictions and unfortunately passed away a couple of years back. When I saw that after that movie a couple of years ago, her last performance, I was very, very moved. And I was in the car and I was kind of talking to her as I was driving away from the cinema. Fortunately, she didn't talk back. That would have been a bit difficult, you know. But, you know, so I'm starting with that, you know. I am back. The process is going, but it's going slowly, you know. And that was the subtitle of my last podcast. Change is a slow process, even for nutty professors. And one of the people I encountered in the underworld at some point talks about snails, you know, and this is the snail's pace. But, you know, you can do want to cross the threshold of, you know, more than 4 weeks, 6 weeks at a time, you know. In today's podcast, I want to deal with a couple of additional terms. I'm going to add some terms to my PTAP system. And there's 2 projects that I want to embark on that I want to discuss with you. And I'm going to put it out there, and I'm going to work on them, and I'll report back to you in the next podcast to let you know what kind of progress I'm making. Now, so let's start with the projects. These projects are, and in my system, remember, we have rechanneling of energy. It's under some methods of dealing with it, you know. So, and you've got rechanneling energy. This is the positive. This is the writing, the reading, the doing the podcasts, maybe setting up websites, publishing, so on and so forth. You know, these are all seeing movies. These are all positive ways of dealing with energy. There is a negative one that I have used. I call them control burns. And I had to use one not too long ago. I ended up going to a casino, but it was a one-time thing to use up some negative energy, but in a direction less harmful than another direction. So it's not advised. I don't advise, in previous podcasts also, I have not advised anyone else to do controlled burns. I have done them from time to time to test them out, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. Okay, so you know, but the goal now is to move away from the portaling, is to move away from the controlled burns, and to focus more on rechanneling energy in positive directions. So you know, project 1, and so far, I have been pretty much doing this alone, except for talking to friends and my analyst. So the one thing I don't have is, and in my system, I do have ESG, establishment of a support group, and I do have friends, and I do have my analyst, but the thing missing is in 12 steps, you have not only support groups, but you have peer support groups, like a PSG, a peer support group of other strugglers, So, and that is, I think, maybe the next step I need to explore, now, I've talked before about how 12 steps just doesn't work for me. I cannot go and follow those steps and the higher power and the serenity prayer and all of that stuff. That's not for me, So I'm thinking of some kind of more informal contact for strugglers, warriors of it, who can't go 12-step. So I'm thinking of something like a Facebook page, or a website. My producer has got some ideas. He's gonna make some suggestions. If any of you have ideas, quite some time ago, when I first started these podcasts 6 months ago, someone actually contacted me through someone I knew in another city and wanted to set up a website. And this person, I think, was also a struggler with addictions. But at the time, I wasn't ready. I was just starting out on the podcast. And but now I think I've got to the stage where I'm ready to at least work on some kind of framework. So now if you want to contact me, through the comments, if you have ideas, maybe we can see how we can put something together, maybe something very informal. Just so that on Facebook or however, if somebody has cravings, somebody can come online and chat and go, yes, I've had this too, and so on. It's the kind of thing that you get face to face in 12 steps, but I'm not looking for, at this stage, actual meetups. And this is just an idea. I'm just thinking I've kind of got as far as I can get on my own now how to try to establish contact, with other people who don't want to go 12 steps, but want to have some contact, some pure contact with other strugglers, Now, there'll be how do we screen people? We'll work all that out later. So this is just something, it's a project that I'm going to think about. I'm going to get, consider some options. You have ideas, you contact me, Now the second one, and I will try to get some kind of website or Facebook that you can contact me on, and I'll announce it hopefully if all works out in the next podcast, Now the second thing, also rechanneling of energy, but more individual. And I've said this before, I have written a lot, a lot of manuscripts, going back 30 years, a lot of them about addictions, various addictions, including gambling and alcoholism, and the more recent ones. So, and I have thousands of pages, dozens of manuscripts literally, And a couple of years ago I had an editor. But again, the timing wasn't right. She liked my work. She thought it was stories that needed to be told. But there's just so much material, it needed to be edited down. And I was working on it then, and also battling an addiction, also looking after my parents. It didn't quite, it wasn't the right time. But, I'm getting ready to, I really want to get my work out there. And it's a different level in the writing. In the podcast, I don't go into a lot of personal details. In writing, they're a lot more detailed, and I can fictionalize and so on, And you remember in one of the earlier podcasts, I mentioned that my crew liked the stories, the junkie stories, And I've got a lot of junkie stories, and I want to share them, about myself and people I've encountered, and maybe may help other people. As I have said, I do these podcasts and my writing for 3 potential audiences. One is strugglers, And I have no solutions. I'm just fumbling along. I know what I can't do. I'm trying different things, what works, how long it works, and I share it with you. So, this is for strugglers. This is also for non-turning back junkies. People who, and I found a lot of people who are not turning back. And I don't tell people to turn back. You want to keep going? It's your choice, So the non-turning back junkies, and for the civilians, the people who are curious, what is the world of addiction like, and how has it changed? So my podcasts are for those three groups, and my writing is also for those three groups. So I'm going to work again. I'm going to look for another editor. So I'm going to look for another editor, and and now I have podcasts that give an idea. Those of you who have seen this podcast know the issues that I talk about, except in the writing, it's a lot more personal and a lot more detailed. And I think I need for myself to go to that next level of sharing. So I'm going to work. I'm going to put a lot of energy into that. And I'm going to now seriously try to publish. So 2-3 quick things to end up with. I want to add a couple of terms to PATAP. Personalized approach to addiction program. So one is DU, daily user. And daily users are people, whatever addiction we're talking about, people who use daily, gamble daily, whatever. And one of the struggles of in a much earlier podcast, I talked about how I saw myself as a tourist. I go to that world, I come back. And one of the people I had partied with way back then had said, "You've been issued a passport." And I think that came up in one of the podcasts. So, but the whole thing is that it's a struggle, if one goes to that world, to come back to this one, and not stay there. So I've added daily user. Now there's another thing that I've come up with, and this is particular, it's just one of the things that I found sort of works for me. In long periods of sobriety, like I said, I've had 8 weeks, 7 weeks, but one of the focal points for me is I wake up in the morning and I've been clean and sober all night, for however long, but every morning I wake up sober. I call that a DSFP, daily sober focus point. And I wake up and my cat is usually next to me, and I kind of savor that. It's a little bit of a reinforcement. It's also an incentive. When the cravings get strong, I sometimes think, oh, if I was to go have a drink or whatever, will this be, I'll screw up my daily focus point, So it works up to a point, So a couple of things in terms of coming back, the re-entry to the world. We'll talk about that in another thing. And I'll just remind you of my system. We had 1 day at a time, 1 minute at a time, 1 week at a time, all of that stuff. Well, it is always 1 day at a time, So, and that daily focus point gives me that reflection on each day clean. So I will be back. So this is the Nutty Professor, with the new symbol, the Star Wars lightsaber, and I'm going to continue battling it. So see you next time. Bye.